just say in advance, since all of this is coming to us so fast, at any point in time in which any of my colleagues wish to ask a question, we will stop the presentation and they will ask their question. And unlike what I'm feeling up to this point, and I want to go on record, I have felt as though some of the answers we've requested have not been responsive. They've been political. And everybody knows what we think of political answers. They're not necessarily honest answers. And I'm really feeling that up to this point in terms of not being direct about your response. Supervisor Chan asked directly, how did the county become engaged? Nobody's been very upfront about that. And I'm going to call out things when I don't think that they're happening right through all of the lineage of conversations we're going to have this afternoon. First person is Dave.
Supervisors, thank you so much for the time today. We have a presentation. I'm going to kick it off. I think maybe the folks from the county are going to put up the slides.
Dave, this is Molly. I'll share my screen.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Molly. Yeah, so in general, I want to kick it off by just giving an overview of the project itself. You know, we have this dynamic vision for a $12 billion private investment at the waterfront at Howard Terminal, a location that has not been used for maritime use in quite some time. There's the aerial right there. We're going to get some nice, awesome shots here. Yeah, so there is the location, the vision of what we're trying to do at the waterfront. We're very excited to be advancing this and to be considering the opportunity to have the county involved in it in a way that hopefully can be responsible and, you know, can be beneficial to all parties involved. I think it's important to remember that this is a project that's going to have many benefits for Oakland. One, it's going to ensure that the A's are here for many generations to come. It's going to ensure that we have an incredible waterfront that's going to be activated in a way that's never happened in the past. We're going to be investing in the site to ensure that it can accommodate sea level rise and have the resiliency necessary to deal with that climate change that we're all facing. And we have an incredible open space, 18 acres of parks, incredible access to the waterfront. Over 2 million visitors a year will access the site. And it's more than a ballpark. There's all the additional development around it. 1.5 million square feet of commercial development, which will be jobs, good jobs for Oaklanders and people in the East Bay. There's going to be 3,000 housing units, including affordable housing, which is sorely needed in our community. And there's going to be 18 acres of waterfront parks that are going to be accessible year-round, plus a rooftop park on top of the ballpark, never been done before, open on all non-game days just to the public, which will provide just panoramic views of the entire Oakland estuary and really be an attraction to have folks come to Oakland. So we're looking at $450 million in community benefits. We're looking at all union labor and everything we're doing. We've agreed to the MAPLA, which is the port PLA document. We also have operational agreements with HERE, with SEIU, on the actual operations of the facility, the hotel, the ballpark, the commercial, which is all really important. And we're at the point we've had 134 unions endorse this project, which is one of the largest amount of union support of any project in the history of the Bay Area. So we're really proud of what we're advocating here. We think there can be a role for the county. We totally understand that it needs to be done in a responsible fashion. But we also understand that we are really at the point where we need to know if this can happen or not. You know, we've spent, like I said, over $200 million. Our existing facility is really past its useful life, and we need to do everything that we can to get to some type of resolution this summer. And that's why we have the city vote on the 20th of July. So one final point, I think it's important to remember that a baseball team is a regional asset. You know, and obviously we have fans throughout Alameda County, throughout the entire Bay Area. And this is going to be this incredible lighthouse location for Alameda County, one of the most dynamic locations in the entire county for people to visit, increasing the quality of life and civic pride of everyone here, because Oakland really is the capital of the East Bay. And this can be really our pinnacle project that can be a lighthouse for other economic development over the next generation. So we appreciate the time today and everyone's, engagement. I'm happy to answer any questions in a direct fashion, in a non-political way. And now I want to turn it over to Jim Wonderman from the Bay Area Council to discuss some of the economic analysis and benefits of this incredible project. Thank you.
Thank you. Just before we move it over to Jim Wonderman, there are a couple of questions.
Yeah, sure.
And let me say, as we go into the question phase for you, I think the board fully appreciates the outreach and the communication that we've had with you in particular and the A's up to this point. And we think that you've consistently been forthcoming and reached out when you thought that the county should be engaged. And I just want to underscore that fact. So we appreciate that. Now we have a few questions of you. Supervisor Miley, Supervisor Chan, anyone else? Then I have a couple of questions as well.
Yeah, great. Whatever you guys have.
Great, thanks, Dave. So yeah, I guess you're leading off.
Yeah, I'm the lead out there. I'm like Ricky Henderson here, and
yeah. And also, congratulations on the A's success thus far. We're hoping for
having a great season. Yeah, we're super excited.
And we all support the A's, and we want to, as it's been pointed out, countlessly, we want to keep the A's here in Oakland. We understand. I mean, people are telling us a lot of stuff that we fundamentally understand, but maybe folks don't understand our role and our fiduciary responsibility. But what I need to understand, Dave, and once again, we didn't call for this session. As President Carson pointed out, the city prompted this, and they got a lot of other people to weigh in, to pressure us to hold this session. So now it's public, and we're going to hold it, and we're going to put a lot of questions out here. So, Dave, has the environmental impact report been certified yet?
No, it is not. It's the draft environmental impact report was finalized, and we took all the comments in, and that's a city-led process, and they're in the process of responding to comments and producing a final environmental impact report that hopefully could be voted on. I think in September, they're telling us, so something around that timeline, and that could be a definitive action of the city council, Supervisor.
So, because it's been the feeling of, I think, everyone that to build a waterfront ballpark down there will be very challenging. A lot of obstacles need to be overcome. And how can we even be entertaining this before we have a finalized certified environmental impact report? Because to me, and I know a lot of people will share this opinion, and I'm sure the A's shared as well, we don't want to do anything that's going to jeopardize the Oakland port. Oakland Port's the second largest port on the West Coast. It's the sixth largest port in the country. It's the economic engine for Oakland. It's the jewel of Oakland economically. And we need to understand how a waterfront ballpark will impact the port and if those impacts can be mitigated. And we don't have a certified environmental document to even make that determination at the moment. So can you respond to that, please?
Well, I think one of the key points to remember is that the Oakland Port Commission has voted twice unanimously on moving forward with the A's project at the waterfront. First on an ENA, and then secondly on an economic deal that happened over 2 years ago. And so that body, which is responsible for stewardship of the port's operations generationally, has deemed our project beneficial to its existence and, future. So I think that's critically important. And I also think it's important to remember that the draft EIR came out. I've read the whole thing. It's thousands of pages. And there's really no showstoppers in there. I think if things would have come out of that had us all more concerned, then maybe we would be less optimistic about trying to drive towards a term sheet and then a final agreement in September. But I think that initial response was positive, Supervisor, and I think that will hopefully carry us into September where this could be voted on by the council in a definitive way, the EIR.
Well, having been in elected office for nearly 30 years, 10 years on the city council and 20 here, I have environmental impact reports, CEQA documents ultimately can be challenged. And I think there are probably parties that might feel otherwise in terms of the definitiveness of that EIR. So it's disconcerting that minimally the city council hasn't certified the EIR just yet. And then furthermore, with all of the best of intentions, we could end up doing something today and in the near future that would harm the ability of the port to continue to thrive, expand, and take on additional opportunities to remain competitive going into the 21st century. You know, you and others have pointed out that this is a generational project. This is the waterfront stadiums, the live all and be all for Oakland and the region, et cetera. Well, what happens if we make a mistake and we jeopardize the port? Are we just trading off one good thing to then end up hurting another good thing? And then it's sort of like we're not making any progress. We're chopping off the nose just by our face.
Well, Supervisor, I agree with you that this is such a consequential decision for our community and for the East Bay to determine whether or not the vision of the waterfront includes a more commercially minded, entertainment minded aspect, which is probably more similar to San Francisco, where you see around Oracle Park and Fisherman's Wharf and that type of area. And that's our vision that we have proposed. We cannot decide whether or not it's the right or the wrong decision. It's the city council, in their wisdom, with their authority, that's going to decide it. We just want an answer.
And I'm glad you said that, Dave. It's the city council and its infinite wisdom that'll make that call. And then, since I'm a taxpayer, and a resident of Oakland, and a voter in Oakland, obviously, I'm going to be watching what the city council ultimately decides. And I think that gets back to our frustration. Why is this before the county today and not before the city to take on that responsibility? Because ultimately, if you put in place a thriving commercial activity down at the waterfront, there might be inherent conflicts with the industrial operation of the port itself. And I've seen that play out in East Oakland, where we have industry that's abutting communities that historically they didn't abut these communities, but communities have sprung up near industry, and it's caused all sorts of let's say, conflicts. And we have ultimately seen industries closed down because of these conflicts, because once citizens move in, residents move in, they have a different level of expectation in terms of what they want in the community. Once you start commercial activity, retail activity, other type of activity in a community or an area that's nearby industry, and the port we could say is an industrial entity, we can have all sorts of unintended conflicts that might take place that we hope we mitigated, but we possibly didn't mitigate. And then all of a sudden, we've got folks who are saying, 20 years down the road, no, we don't want the port here. We don't want the port to expand. We don't want the port to continue some of these opportunities. We don't, because we want to come and we want to shop. We want to get into our residential facilities. We want to see the entertainment that's taking place down at the port. So you're right. The city's got to make that call in terms of what it wants for the future, but recognizing that potentially a call they make could have a significant impact on the future if they get it wrong. Now, obviously, we're hoping that if they do get it right and they do both the state and waterfront development and the port, they can, thrive competitively and coexist. But we don't know that. And that's why I think that a certified environmental document is important, and the ability for people to decide if they want to challenge that is extremely important. And once again, I don't want to say anything disparaging to the aides, but as a public official and as a fiduciary to the taxpayers, I've got to put these issues out on the table because these are important issues. And the only reason I'm asking these questions is because it's before the Board of Supervisors. I would think it would be the role of the City Council to be asking these questions, not me. Any other response, Dave, at the moment?
Well, just that, I agree that this is a really big decision. It's probably the most consequential decision that the community has faced in a generation, since probably, or maybe two, since they built, the city and the county, the Coliseum site, and brought all these professional sports teams to Oakland in the 1960s. So, we have put forward what we think is a very robust and responsible plan that actually can have coexistence with the port in a meaningful way, that can actually grow the economic base, not only of Alameda County, but of Oakland, obviously, as well. And, like I said, we just need to know if people share the vision. And, we're prepared to deal with the consequences of either decision. But I think living in this limbo state of going sideways, which we've been done for the past almost 20 years, that has to end. And that's, I think, why we're all here. And that's why there's a lot of pressure from the league and from other entities, because we are running out of time. And so, we really appreciate everyone's diligence and, time in investing in a thoughtful analysis of this project to determine if your participation is warranted and makes sense with your mandate.
And just one other comment, and I'm going to pass the mic to Supervisor Chang, but the fact that you point back to 20 years is really relevant, because had the administration of our former governor, who was the mayor, had he not fired Robert Bob, we would probably have a downtown A's stadium today. But no, that was not a priority. The priority was to do other things as opposed to addressing the needs of the Oakland A's and building a ballpark stadium in downtown Oakland, because that would have happened at the site of the Uptown.
Underscoring the fact that that was a city decision,
Yes, that was once again a city decision.
not a county decision.
Not a county decision. And I just want to say too, before I forget it, we should never compare Oakland to San Francisco. Oakland is a working class city historically. That's what it's built upon. San Francisco is a tourist, commercial type of city. They've got, ocean liners coming over there. That's what they do. We're not San Francisco. We're a working class town. That's why we have a working class port. So when people try to describe San Francisco and Oakland as being the same, you are really, really missing the point historically in terms of how Oakland came about and what Oakland's all about. It's a working class town with a working class port.
Supervisor Chan.
Okay. I had two questions for you, Dave, and
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. So I want to ask you, what are your current plans for the Coliseum site? I mean, I've understood for a long time that you preferred Howard Terminal, and I understand why. But at the time we were negotiating with you, I thought that your plan was, and I may be wrong, but one of the reasons we sold it to you is we thought the city may go forward and do that too, and you would be able to use some of the revenue generated there to help pay for the Howard Terminal. So what are your plans for the Coliseum at this point?
Well, our plans for the Coliseum are kind of on hold because the city is decided to move forward with another entity to sell its other share to. So, we've been working hard to see if we could secure the full site. It appears that that's not going to happen, at least in the near term. And so we've just barely been focused on the waterfront to get approval there of our $12 billion project. And so that's been really the focus, or especially over the last year since COVID. But as people have seen, and we've done, 40 or 50 community meetings, and we have a community-inspired plan that includes keeping the arena and really restoring Damon Slough and Elmhorst Creek, and having more of a parks-like location for East Oakland and job-generating activities and affordable housing. That was always our vision for that area, which we still would like to pursue. But obviously, we only own half of it. So, it's hard to do that until that gets sorted out. And also, we've just been more focused on the waterfront because we need to get the stadium figured out first. Supervisor.
Okay, all right, that's fair, but that's problematic for us as well, because that's what we thought was going to happen, and the city made a different decision, regrettably. I guess the other question I wanted to ask you is, I think things definitely have been slowed down by COVID, so I totally understand that. I mean, there were a lot of things we wanted to attend to, and I know that in terms of the sale of the Coliseum, you requested some extra time for inspection and other things, which we did, understanding that things were closed down and it was really hard to go in person and do a lot of these things. So I just want to ask you, I understand you're under pressure, but I hope you'll also see that we're under a lot of pressure because apparently the city's been discussing this one-on-one for quite a period of time. And we literally did not get information on this until the last 10 days or so. And it is a complex deal. I mean, we can, from a macro point of view, really like it or really, think it's going to be great. And we're going to listen to a lot of what happens here today, but our folks haven't really had a chance to fully analyze all the parts of it and what the effect might be because it's a 45-year deal for the county. So I'm just asking you, I'm not asking the city, I mean, in terms of Major League Baseball and the A's, if now we're considered part of the deal, unless there's another way to work it with the city where we're taken out of the deal, we would need, I think, at least until September to deal with this. I mean, I'm just throwing that out. I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, I think
anybody, but we're in a very difficult position here.
No, I mean, I hear what you're saying, Supervisor. I think those are all fair points, but I have my own pressure that we're under as well to try to get to some type of answer to know if this can work at the waterfront. And obviously, our original proposal to the city, which we spent almost a year working with them on, did not include the county. This is really an ask that the city is making of the county to participate. There's lots of ways to solve this project and make all the numbers work. This is one way. I mean, we're in favor of it because we're hopeful it could be a way to get to a yes. But at the end of the day, we're just most focused on getting an answer. And hopefully, I mean, it could just include voting yes on the plan that we've identified and presented to the city in January, which did not include the county. So, I mean, there are other options, like Supervisor Miley mentioned, that may be less viable to the city council members. I can't speak on their behalf, but there are different ways to make this work. We're just in a position where we just need to get to an answer one way or the other.
Yeah, well, I would just reiterate, I think you might agree, you might not, that we've tried to be responsible in terms of our responses to you, in terms of the sale of our share and extending deadlines to you, given the COVID. The county has been mainly responsible for COVID, as you know. I mean, the city has played a role, but we took the brunt of it in terms of our public health and, having to do all the testing, the vaccines. It's been a huge undertaking, which is now kind of moving into the next phase. We're trying to deal with the reopening of the county, whether services are going to be live or not. And I'm not using that as an excuse. I mean, we all have our work to do, but I think if you're going to consider this as an option, and we will look at it. I mean, we're not people who are just going to say we're not going to look at it.
Thank
but
you.
I really feel we're going to need till the fall, till September, an extension to look at this, because I think it's really unreasonable to ask a body that's responsible for so much public money when you've been having this negotiation with the city for a year and we just got it. So that's just my opinion. I feel I've been in office for many, many years now, and I feel like I really have a responsibility to people that I serve in Oakland and throughout the county to do a more thorough look. And again, not saying no, not saying yes, but certainly with an open mind. I definitely have an open mind on this.
Supervisor.
Mr. Kaval, I want to thank you for presenting your portion today. It strikes me as a very, very straightforward, very transparent, very open, and above board. And I thank you for that. I commend you for that. It's very refreshing. I know we're going to go through a lot of what you gave us a preview of, but I just also have to ask, just to make it very clear, and I think we all know the answer to it already. Major League Baseball may have already told us about it, and you've purchased your half of the Coliseum site. Just to be very, very clear, because I've had a lot of people say, why don't they just go back to the Coliseum site? But can you comment? That is, as I understand it, off the table. It's Howard Terminal, or you can't stay in Oakland. Is that truly the case?
Yes, Supervisor, we are really down to our last at bat, and it's at Howard Terminal. And it really is Howard Terminal or bust. The Coliseum site is not a location that fits the future vision of baseball. That's a direct quote from Rob Manfred, the Commissioner of Baseball. And we are focused on getting to hopefully a yes on the waterfront. And if that doesn't happen, then our options will be extinguished in Oakland.
Indeed, I want to get to yes as often as possible. Not sure that we have the time to do that, but we're going to give it our best. And again, I appreciate your straightforwardness, openness, transparency. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a few questions, and I heard the last comment in terms of the Commissioner of Baseball saying that the Coliseum site is no longer an option. Unfortunately, I guess some of us, and myself included, when Lou Wolf was representing the A's, he sat in my office, which I still have, and was really pushing the Coliseum site in terms of the full development there, which included commercial, residential, as well as a Coliseum. Some of the same things that have been alluded to in the brief information or lack of information that we've received up to this point from the board. A couple of questions. You referenced that there were other options, financial options, to make the deal work. Could you elaborate on that? Maybe give some examples of what some of the options are?
Well, Supervisor, it's important to remember that the proposal that we made and that we actually worked for almost 9 months with the city staff on in January, it does not have the county involvement because we didn't know if the county would be involved or we didn't know how that would play out. So it was an offer to the city, and it included having an off-site infrastructure financing district that could basically handle the off-site infrastructure. And so that was a different approach. It's in our term sheet that's available online. We released that publicly in April, and people can read it. I could send it around to you guys as well. So that was our original approach to how to deal with the off-site infrastructure without the county involvement. So that is always an option that could be considered by the city council. I think, they can't have to speak for themselves, but I think they're thinking that didn't work for them for whatever reason, and they were looking at other options. And I think that's how we're all sitting here on a Zoom call, having a conversation about the county being involved.
Thank you. So have you to date had meetings with each and every one of the council persons in a substantive way in which they've been presented the financing plans? Has there been individual presentations which gave them kind of the basic fundamentals of the proposal?
Well, we've personally had ongoing dialogue with all the council members, but I think they've really been relying on their own city staff, Betsy Lake, Molly Mayburn, Ed and his team, and all their, group of consultants and advisors on that, because obviously they wanted their own point of view. I mean, they saw our proposal. So that might be a better question for Betsy Lake or Molly.
Okay, thank you.